what's up, everybody? Welcome to Life Out Loud. I'm Kiera. I got my guest Liza here with me. Today we're just going to talk about HIV and AIDS awareness. I'm just let her get introduce herself. So go ahead.
So my name is Liza. I live right here in Niagara Falls, New York. I've been HIV positive for 25 years now. I've been in recovery for 20 years. If I make it to Tuesday, it'll be 21
Hey, that's
years.
it. That's it.
And I'm just kind of here to bring awareness to HIV. I'm also one of the spokesmodels for the HIV Stop Smoking
Okay.
campaign that is sponsored through New York State.
Right.
And the whole purpose of this campaign is to bring awareness of how treatment changes lives and also to like kill the stigma that comes behind HIV, right? I'm also, I'm a mother of five, a grandmother of eight.
Yeah.
And I'm also, that's not launching till next week, but I'm also one of these spokesmodels for the hepatitis C elimination campaign with New York State.
Mhm.
So that won't come out till next week.
Oh, that's exciting, though.
Yes.
Good. Busy. You busy.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm all over the place.
You're busy. So, just tell me a little bit about your childhood. Like, what was it like? I know you said you're from New York City, right?
Yes. Born and raised in New York City. I left there when I was 19. My
And you came
grandma,
here?
I came to Buffalo.
Okay.
Came to Buffalo. Actually, my mother made me come to Buffalo because everybody was leaving New York. It was
Yeah.
1985. That's kind of when freebasing and crack cocaine kind of started getting coming and taking over.
Okay.
So my mother was leaving New York. My grandmother had left the Buffalo, and my uncle painted this nice picture that it was a better life.
Right.
My grandmother raised me, my brother, and my cousin.
Okay.
Both my parents were heroin addicts.
Okay.
Yeah, my father died in 1984 in the beginning of the HIV/AIDS epidemic, and my mother was also HIV positive. She passed in 2000. She had a lot of complications with medications and things like that.
Okay.
Hmm.
And so what like so growing up, you said your grandmother raised you, so your parents wasn't you didn't have both of them in the house together.
No, they weren't in the household. As far as I can remember, my grandmother was the one that was there. Yeah, I mean, there were days and times when my mother showed up, and I have the best memories. My mom always showed up during holidays, right? So even if it was the day of or the day before, my
Right,
mom
she knew
always
to be
showed
there.
up.
Right.
Holidays and birthdays were a must. But yeah.
So how did you get like in the streets, so to say? Like how did you get introduced to drugs? Like was it just something that just kind of happened? Like
When I was younger, like I tried marijuana. I think as a teenager, I remember trying acid one time, right? Was never a fan of alcohol, but came to Buffalo and started getting in the drug game, like selling drugs.
Okay.
And I just eventually it progressed and I became my best customer.
Wow.
I started from selling cocaine and then little by little just experimenting with the heroin and IV drug use.
Okay.
So, and that was how I contracted the virus.
Okay. So were you using the heroin or you?
I was using heroin when yeah.
Okay. Was it ever a point that you was like in the streets, like, and you like wanted to be clean, but you just knew like maybe it's not the right time? Like, did you ever think like that? Like,
There were always times, yeah, there were a lot of times that I thought like I can't do this no more, right? Because like for me, when I was in, I was all in, right? So like I was didn't have an apartment. Like I was going for, you guys call them trap houses now. We call them dope houses.
Right.
But just going from dope house to dope house, couch to couch, staying wherever I wanted to stay. And when I wanted to get away and get a little rest, I kind of went to my grandmother's house because that door was always open, right? But that thought was always there. Didn't know then that the disease of addiction wouldn't let me get out, right? Because I just everything was
realize how strong addiction is, though.
Right.
Addiction is, even anything you're addicted to is strong.
Absolutely. Like I can't, and it still affects me. Like I don't know how to not buy a pair of shoes.
Right.
Like I got more, not to brag, but like I got this thing for shoes.
Mm-hmm.
I got one set of feet. I do not need a room full of shoes. but it can get us anyway. Like some people struggle, whether it's gambling, food, you know what I mean, things like that. Mine just happened to be the
I
drugs.
understand. Did you ever get clean and like relapse or?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
many times,
many times.
many times, many times. I couldn't even remember how many times, but I've been to countless detoxes, tried methadone
Mm-hmm.
clinics. My problem was that I always ended up right back in the same area. So,
Okay, so
I
it's
get clean.
easy.
It
Yeah,
was easy,
you're
right?
right.
So
It's
what I've
easy.
come to learn is that I needed to change the people, places, and things that I was surrounding myself with.
Right.
And it took I spent 15 years on the street.
Wow.
So it took 15 years for something to click
Right.
and for me to make that decision not to go back.
Right. So what you think it was that made you like? What made you just fight through and just say, "This is it"? Like I'm tired. Like.
Honestly, like I don't know, right?
Right.
Because I
Yeah.
remember like I went to detox because I didn't want to go back to prison, right? I was
Okay.
on parole, had just got out on a violation, went back to getting high, right?
So you've been in
Um,
prison too?
well, no, I didn't use in
Okay.
prison,
Okay.
but when I came out on parole, I went back to getting high, right? Um, it took maybe about a month or so, but I went back and me playing the system, I'm like, I'm gonna go to rehab because if you're in rehab, they're not gonna lock me up, right?
All right.
So I did that, and he had a really strong suggestion for me that I go to long term treatment. I did a 90-day program, and then I did a halfway house. And even through all this, I was still thinking, like, I still want to go get high.
Right.
But I don't know, something happened.
Okay.
And like I talked about, like I didn't go back, like I stayed here in Niagara Falls. I started doing volunteer work.
Just
I
little
was
stuff.
just doing something different, and then something happened to me.
Right. Just changing.
It's something changed. Like I believe I'm not a religious person,
Right.
but I definitely believe that there's a higher power working in my life that kind of intervenes.
Absolutely. Everything happened for a reason too.
Yeah.
You already know.
Yeah.
So tell me about like. So you said you went to prison. How many times did you get arrested? Like.
Oh God.
Did you? Okay. Well, not how many
Well,
times.
I don't even know how many times I've got a slew of misdemeanors.
Like, was you a long sentence or was it just like in and out, like
No,
little things?
like the longest I spent in prison was 12 months on a parole violation.
Okay.
Like I've been very fortunate because they've always been drug charges.
Right.
Um, like I did the shock treatment in Willard. You don't stay long for that.
Yeah.
You're gone for maybe 4 or 5 months from beginning to end, and I just couldn't stay clean. So then I ended up going. I stayed in Bedford for a few months, went to Albion, but that was that 12-month violation because I couldn't stay clean.
Right.
I couldn't. It was a little 1.5 to 3, and it felt like forever to finish.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But it was what it was.
Alright, so tell me about the HIV. So what age were you diagnosed?
Oh, so I'm 52.
Oh, you look good.
Well, thank you.
You look good.
I'm 52. I was in my 1994, 94, because my daughter was born 93, so it was a year after that.
Oh wow.
So yeah, I was pretty young. It was in Buffalo that I got diagnosed. I was That's when in the beginning of their needle exchange. I don't know if you're familiar with Buffalo.
No.
In Buffalo, they have a syringe exchange program. I actually work at Evergreen Health, and we house the syringe exchange program in that building. So we're like a medical clinic. We do mental health, substance use, and that. So um, back then, it was at Columbus Hospital. It used to be at Niagara Street, and in order to get people tested, they were offering sandwiches and coffee.
Oh, wow.
And someone told me about it, and I remember being hungry, and I thought, all right, I'll go, right? So I got tested, had to come back back then, they didn't have rapid testing. So I had to come back, and they gave me my results, and it was mind blowing, and
Did it
it
feel unreal? Like,
it did feel unreal. It felt like, oh my God, like both my parents and now me, right?
right,
And I thought, my instant thought was, I'm gonna die, because that was my vision.
right,
Like I said, my father, when my father died, it was 1984 in New York City, in the beginning of the AIDS epidemic.
right,
So I remember what he looked like the last time I seen him in the hospital. There weren't medications. There was nothing that they could really do. People were literally dying
right,
from the disease. So that was my thought. And I kind of went into this, spiraled even further into my drug use,
right.
because
Of course, because it probably, I could see that.
yeah, like my thought was, if I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die high,
Right,
right? But yeah, like it was scary. It was scary, and I used the drugs to numb it,
right.
and so I didn't have to look at it. But it was hard. It was
That's pretty
really
nice.
hard.
So can you explain like exactly what HIV is to people who don't really know? Like I know the definition, but like
Right.
what does it do? Like I know like this attacks certain blood cells or something like
Right.
that.
So HIV attacks the immunity system. So that is our system that protects our bodies from uh,
Like cold and stuff.
cold and bacterias and germs and stuff
Right,
like
right.
that. So what happens is that once the HIV virus enters the body, it attaches itself to T cells, right?
Okay.
And it starts to duplicate itself.
Right.
And that's what happens. And it eventually starts to duplicate, and you end up with, today we know that you end up with a viral load. Like years ago, only because where medical science was with the HIV virus and the AIDS virus, um, they would say if you had less than 200 or less T cells in your body, then you were AIDS defined, and that meant that pretty much the disease is taking over your body. Today, we go by viral load, and that shows the duplication of how much of the virus is in a milliliter of, and I think I got it right, a milliliter. It's a small amount, but a milliliter, how much of the virus is in that blood, right?
Okay.
So I'm undetectable.
Right.
And you get undetectable by taking medications.
Right. So how many? What's that like? Is it like a lot of medication? You know, everybody.
No.
Growing up, we always heard that Magic Johnson took like 3,000 pills a day.
Oh God.
That's how we. You know, that's what. But reality is, that's what people
Right.
think of when they hear about HIV.
Right.
They think of Magic Johnson because
Right.
it went so viral. But
Right, and he was pretty much like, as far as I think Arthur Ashe also came out, but for someone of minority, someone of color, right,
right.
someone popular, to come out and speak about this and tell his truth. Um, Back then, that was the case, right? People were taking, they were called cocktails.
Right.
So it was a combination of these different medications. I remember a time when I was taking 15 pills a day, right? um, I was always been fortunate enough that I never really had any side effects from medications, but that wasn't such the case for
Other
a
people.
lot of people. Today I take one pill,
Wow.
right?
That's
So it's
amazing.
3 medications in one pill.
That's amazing.
No side effects. I'm undetectable, and what that means is that I cannot sexually transmit the virus to someone else.
Wow.
Pretty
That's great.
simple.
Right.
So, like, if I was to have condomless sex with someone else, they can't catch the virus from
Wow.
me.
That's amazing. Technology came a long way.
Technology, medical
That's
technology has
amazing.
definitely come a long way, and the future is looking even better. So we're
Right.
looking at like maybe one shot a month
Wow.
for medication, things like that.
Right.
So, but one pill a day from like 13, 15 pills, that's a big improvement.
That's absolutely. Tell me a little bit about the HIV Stop So Me campaign. I watched the video. You said it was your third year. How's that
Yes.
going for you?
It's going good. It was kind of terrifying at first.
I
So
can
a
imagine.
friend of mine told me about the campaign, and they were looking for, a minority woman, heterosexual woman, and I thought about it. I always remember. I've always thought about the people that, like my predecessors in this, that advocated for better health care, better how. Well, we're still We're still trying to do the housing thing, but better medical benefits, things like that, for people that are HIV positive. And I always thought, like, oh my God, these people are so brave and so
Right.
bold to tell their truth,
Right. It's
right?
hard.
It is hard. It's very difficult. It's frightening because you don't know what the backlash is.
Right.
Like, I know what the stigma is like, right?
Right.
Because my personal experiences,
Right.
and I thought about it. My daughters are, of, well, one's in her 20s and the other one was on her way out of high school. It's a conversation that I had with my children, and they were very supportive, right? Because I also had to take into account what it would do to them.
Right.
And the reason why made the decision to be on the campaign was I was kind of in a transition in my life and in my relationship, and I needed something,
Right.
right? I needed
Outlet.
something. I needed an
Yeah.
outlet. I needed something. I'm looking at not being in this relationship no more. I'm looking at my girls don't need me because they grown and they
Yeah.
drive
Right.
themselves around, right? They don't need me to pick them up
Definitely.
anymore and that kind of stuff. So I needed something, and I said, you know what? I'm gonna step out on some faith here, and I spoke to some friends also, and a lot of people were very supportive, and I realized that I had a lot of more people in my corner
Then you
than I
thought.
thought.
Absolutely.
So
That's a
I said, you
blessing.
know what? I'm going for it.
Yeah.
And then I had to think about, you know what? When I was getting high, I didn't care what nobody was saying anyway.
Right. Exactly. True.
So my thing was, I'm doing this. I'm doing something positive in my life for myself, not only for me, but possibly to help somebody else.
Right. And like you said in your video, you said as long as I can help
One person.
one person, then I'm good. I respect that. I like that. I like that. And then you said in the video on the HIV stops with me.org, you said it felt like you had a second life. Like you had this smile. And you was just like, I feel like I got a second chance. And you was like, wow, like I have a purpose. Like I know. Like what's that like for you? Like
Oh
what?
man,
Like how does that's amazing.
it has blown my mind, right? Like, not just with the campaign, but like being in recovery for 20 years. Like, my life has opened up in a way, and it's been a process
Mm-hmm.
from being a woman that stuck a needle in her arm and pretty much walked away from her children and her family to drugs, to being a woman that graduated college, raised girls, was in a long term relationship. I had two children, a dog, and a picket fence, right? I had the whole nine. Bought a home, got reunited with my family.
Literally turned it up on.
Literally, right? And it just continues to, like,
Elevate. It's
when I
elevating. It's elevating.
elevate is like, I can't even explain it. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
elevate is a good word, but to me, when I think about it, it is. I can't explain it. I can't explain it. But what I'm learning is that when I continue to do what I'm supposed to do, right? And again, I'm not a religious person, but I believe in a higher power, and there's a reason why I'm still alive,
Absolutely.
right? God makes a way.
Absolutely.
God always makes a way.
Absolutely.
And as long as I continue to do what I'm supposed to be doing right now, things will happen in my life,
Absolutely.
right? So, like, for instance, my latest blessing, right, was I had a little girl 29 years ago, and she was adopted when she was 6 months old, right? Well, that little girl is not a little girl no more, and she reached out to me like a few months ago, and like we were able to have like this mini family reunion,
Wow.
and like, listen, I'm so blessed beyond
Right.
words, right? And it wasn't nothing of my doing. It wasn't me looking for her. It wasn't. I prayed every day, and I prayed every year that somebody had her and they were loving on her and giving her what I couldn't give her,
Right.
right? And it just came
That's
together, right?
great.
It
I'm
just
happy
came.
for you.
It just it
Congratulations.
just came full circle. Thank you.
Right. Of course.
But so those are the things, right? Even when I'm struggling, like, I'm still getting used to being a one income per fam household, right? And I struggle financially, um, but that's not even what it's about.
Right.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter
Exactly.
because he still makes a way.
Absolutely. Always. As long as you do what you're supposed to do, he always gonna provide.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So
So tell us about the campaign. I know you're having the event at the resource tomorrow.
yes. So myself with the HIV Stops With Me campaign, Falona Lamar with Bridging Recovery Solutions,
Okay.
and another program right here in Niagara County called Addict to Addict. We've decided to come together and put this event at the Doris B. Jones Center
Okay.
on 9th Street,
Right.
3001
Nice
9th
street.
Street.
Okay.
It's from 4 to 8, and we're calling it Community First. Together we can stop this stigma,
Right.
right? So it's just not the stigma. There's stigma behind everything.
Yeah,
Whether
it's
whether it's
age,
yeah, with
you walk outside, got the wrong glasses
if
on.
you got the wrong glasses on, people talking about you, right?
It's crazy.
So, and it's a way, like again, you and I were talking before I started that I've noticed in this county how it's hard. I don't see um, the visual evidence
Right.
that there's help, right?
Right.
Unless you walk into the trap building and go to the Niagara County Health Department office, then you really don't know, right?
Exactly.
So we're trying to bring awareness to HIV and what that means as someone living with it. We're trying to bring awareness to like having community recovery properties and people that own these properties, welcoming people that are in recovery and helping them along the way, and programs like Addict to Addict where all you have to do is pick up the phone, they will talk to you, they will come get you, they will take you to an emergency room or somewhere else to seek treatment. And we're trying to bring the community together. That was just my purpose. I've been talking about it for years as someone who still goes to Erie County for her medical services.
Right. And you live here, right?
And I live here,
Yeah,
right? So my thing was too, like in the beginning and early recovery, I took a bus. So what about the people going to ECMC? That was a 2-hour ride.
Right.
So what about the people that don't know how to even just navigate the bus?
A lot of people
Right?
don't. I know.
People
I know.
don't, right? Right. If my child, my youngest one, I said, take the bus, she'd be like, what are you crazy?
Right.
She might call an Uber,
right.
or, you know, but what about the people that may not have the bus transportation? Right? So where do they go? Where do they go? And how do we make our community feel comfortable to walk in the door? That's what it is.
That's exactly what it is. Because there's so many people out here, like I told you before earlier. You know, people don't know what's out there. They don't know the resources they have. They don't know that they can get help. And then, like you said too, I remember in the video you said how you know what it's like to feel alone. Like, what would you say to somebody that feels like that? That feels like they can't say anything. They can't talk to anybody about it. Like, what advice could you give them?
I want to tell everybody to call me, but I can't help everybody. I can't help everybody. But I want people to know that there are people out here that are trying to bring more awareness to the stigma that comes behind addiction and the HIV thing. I want people to know that they're not alone, right? Like you said, like I always felt like because I couldn't tell my story and live my truth, I felt isolated from the world, right? Because if I told you I was HIV positive, I was afraid that you wouldn't let me into your home. I was afraid that maybe you go wipe your toilet seat down after I used it with bleach.
Right. That's a stereotype.
And it's happening. It's still happening. Or maybe you take that cup that I used and throw it away. Right? So I want people to know that that's not the case, that we're not dying with this disease. We're living and we're thriving.
And we're looking good.
Listen, we're looking good. I'm 52. Like sometimes, you know, inside my body sometimes feels 60, but outside, I think I look pretty good for someone that spent 15 years on the streets and all that other stuff, right? I've been blessed in that way also. So, but just want them to know that they're not by themselves and there's help out here. And all we have to do is take that first step.
Absolutely. And they can come to the event
Yes.
tomorrow at the Resource Center. Do
At the
not
Resource
forget that
Center.
you can come. That's really all I had today, honestly.
Okay.
Thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. So
Well,
much.
I appreciate you. I think it's important that we support each other in this community.
Absolutely.
And as someone from my age to support the younger generation.
I definitely appreciate that.
Yes, because that's the only way we're going to be able to thrive and do better is to come together, right? And to stick together and help each other out. So I hope to see everyone,
Yes.
or if you can make it tomorrow at the Doris B. Jones Center, again from 4 to 8, there's going to be light refreshments. And we've got some good stuff for you, so come out and be a part of it.
All right, thank you. Thank everybody for tuning in to Life
Thank
Out Loud.
you.
Y'all have a good night.
Have a good night.
Dolores said, "Think." Oh wait, let me end it first.